Hey guys, the Common Man here. So in this package I have a pretty special knife. This thing is a bit of an icon. It's made by Spyderco, and let's dive in. Let's see what we got here. We're gonna show the Baby Banter some love today. I haven't used this thing in quite a while, so let's use this to open up the package. So like I said, I'm really excited to check this thing out. I honestly never thought I would have one in my collection. But thankfully, it's been a good last month or so of getting rid of some knives, which is always bittersweet. I hate getting rid of knives, especially ones that I really like. But you know, it frees up some cash to pick up really special stuff like this. So there we go. Right off the bat, we see what it is: Knifejoy, and that's actually really sweet because this knife, it's Spyderco's really in general, don't come with pouches, so. That is very cool that they included a Knifejoy pouch. So that's one cool little goodie. Here is the knife, and then I see that we have a bunch of other stuff in here. So clearly what we're looking at today is the Slysz, or if you're Nick Shabazz, Slysz Bowie. I'm not going to claim that I am pronouncing it correct, but I'm going to say Slysz Bowie just because. So this is pretty cool, actually. It comes with a couple of pouches. That is very cool. Actually, pouches. Did I say pouches? Patches. So Velcro patches, that's super cool. Let's go ahead and open it up. I am really excited to see this thing because it's got quite the cult following, and then just typical Spyderco stuff. We've seen all this, so we're not gonna really take a deep dive into that. But here is the knife itself, and let's go ahead and get that tape cut. Man, I forgot how much I love this thing. This is such a cool little knife. Anyway, video's not about that. Alright, and there it is. So it's got that very cool blue anodized titanium, and it's actually got a really nice kind of rough, kind of textured finish. It's got that contoured titanium scale, which is very nice. You can see it's not flat, but it's actually got a nice curve to it. Kind of a signature of the original Slysz Bowie, and then it's got what I think is, yeah, definitely a G10 backspacer, which the original had as well. Now this thing is actually, it's got a couple of really cool, unique features that differentiates it from the original. There's actually a lot that makes this different than the original Slysz Bowie, but and I've never had one of those in hand. I've never touched, I've never seen an original Slysz Bowie. I would love to someday, but not for the money that they're going for in the secondhand market. So this is a pretty cool way to get that knife in your hand, even though there are some differences. But I really do love this. I love this titanium. I love the finish. It's actually got some kind of cool color variations. It almost looks, I don't want to say it because it's going to sound bad, but it almost looks dirty, which is kind of interesting. It's almost got some browns and some, I don't know. It's very unique. It's not just a solid blue or purple kind of color. It's got some variation in there. But let's go ahead and open it up. The reverse flick's going to be difficult because there's it's kind of blocking your path to that Spidey hole, but I think we can still get it. Yeah, there we go. So not the easiest thing on the reverse flick. And let's actually, I'm just curious. Let's try that. Ooh, yeah, that works. Oh, I'm gonna cut myself. I'm not careful. So you really got to think about it when you're. This is gonna take some getting used to. It is a little. It's a little. You got to. It's kind of particular on how you actually deploy it. So you can kind of get your finger in there on the reverse flick. There we go, and it does work quite well. The detent is actually beautiful. I'm happy to say that. But when you're deploying it with the thumb, you kind of have to send your thumb that way, because this cutout here kind of gets in your path. Normally I like to flick my thumb almost straight up towards the pivot, but in this case you really got to kind of send your thumb out to the side. That's going to take some practice, but I will say it actually does seem to be tuned quite nicely. And the action is a little bit stiff, and it's relatively smooth. I think that's going to break in very nicely. You know, you got to keep in mind this is a brand new knife, and it is running on washers. It looks like it's running on phosphor bronze washers, which should break in quite nicely. I do expect this to become very smooth, and I would honestly hope so for the money that you pay for these things. But I do expect it to smooth out quite nicely. All of my Spydercos that run on phosphor bronze washers always smooth out really, really well. They end up having a nice buttery action. First thing I notice actually is that beautiful crown spine. I really, really like that. And I love the transition from the flat, really honestly, all the way back to this very aggressive jimping. I mean, those are like saw teeth. They're not uncomfortable, but they provide a ton of traction for your thumb. And man, they look really good. Very precise. The machining on this thing looks extremely precise. It looks really high end. And this, I believe, is, yeah, Taiwan. So Taichung, Taiwan. And I know that they produce some incredible knives there. So, I mean, it just looks incredible. All of the edges are sharp, and they look like they're supposed to be sharp. Not like they failed to knock them down, but it looks like real precision machining on this. The thumb hole has relatively sharp edge, but not... I remember one thing that I remember from the Spyderco Smock was the thumb hole was like... I mean, it was almost so sharp you felt like it could cut you. This is not quite like that. This feels a little bit nicer. I'm not loving the belt satin finish on the blade. That's one thing that I do wish that they carried over to this model, was that beautiful finish that they had on the original Slysz Bowie. It had that kind of like a stone washed, or yeah, I guess you could call it a stone washed finish. And again, I've never seen it in person, but just in the videos that I've seen, it looks incredible. But this does look good. It's a good belt satin finish. It's consistent. I actually like that it's at somewhat of an angle. Those belt satin lines kind of match that angle, which looks really good. The Spidey logo looks great. Cool little, I'm guessing that's the Slysz logo there. And then, you know, billboarding is pretty minimal here. Overall, it looks great. It does have a nice sharpening choil. Not the best I've ever seen, but you could get a couple, probably one good sharpening out of this before you start getting up into that, before you start making kind of a notch there. But I do like to see that it has a sharpening choil, so that looks good. And another thing about this knife, which I really like, is that it doesn't have a finger choil up forward. However, you're close to the start of that edge, so you can really get pretty precise. You'll be able to cut things right up to here, and you're not a very far distance. You're not very far from your fingers, so you're going to be able to have a lot of control right here on the edge, which I really enjoy. I'm not a big fan of knives where, you know, you have to hold it in one position and the blade doesn't start until, you know, maybe a half inch or an inch away from the end of your fingers. I don't really care for that. So this is nice to see that it's pretty close to where your fingers sit. And I'm not usually a big fan of this kind of belly, but here it seems like it should be just fine, and the grind looks really nice. A pretty low angle grind, which I'm happy to see. So this should be beautiful at slicing, and it's pretty thin behind the edge as well, so that's exciting to see. Overall construction looks great. Pull this little tab out of here, kind of like a sticker or something that keeps the pocket clip from rubbing up against that titanium, which it's gonna happen. But wire pocket clip looks good. I'm not a huge fan of wire pocket clips. I may end up, if I end up keeping this knife, I may end up changing this out for a like a solid titanium pocket clip. But you know, this is nice because it does look minimal when it's in your pocket. So, and it functions really well. I've used plenty of wire pocket clips by Spyderco, and they work great. I just don't love the side-to-side play that they have. And I don't know. This one feels pretty good though. This does feel, I'm not sure if it's any different than any other Spydercos that I've had with wire pocket clips, but for some reason it feels a little bit more solid. So that's cool. I'm happy to see that. And I love that G10 backspacer. It almost looks like it doesn't belong because you've got so much titanium and metal that it in a way it almost looks out of place, but at the same time I think it's a really cool offset. It kind of gives it a I don't know, it gives it a really unique look having that G10 thrown in there. I'm not sure, it's hard to explain, but I love the look of that, kind of something just different that kind of pops on the back. Reversible pocket clip is nice to see, and then the ergonomics are very nice. Like I said, lots of grip here. Really one position for your hand, but it's where you want to be anyway, and it really feels good. The pocket clip's not a hot spot. Yeah, this is pretty impressive. One thing that I always loved about the Slysz, it's such a weird minor detail, But actually two things. I love the shape of this back end here. It locks your hands in. It kind of bulges out here a little bit. I think it looks good and it feels good. And then another thing is this little downward angle here. It just gives the whole knife such a nice look, kind of unique. Just every little detail on this knife I think is done very nicely as far as aesthetics go. I can see some things that might be kind of an issue. I'm not loving the fact that you don't get access to that hole from the reverse side, although you can see that once you get used to it, you kind of, we're still getting used to it. We'll see. That might end up not being a big deal. And then the other thing is this cutout here for the Spidey hole. I wish that they gave you a little bit more access towards the front here so you can kind of change the angle that you send your thumb forward, because like I said, now you kind of have to send it out to the side to avoid that that metal or the titanium liner there. But again, we'll see how it goes over time. I'm sure I'll get used to it, but I do see this being a knife that I'm gonna want to carry. It's just I'm gonna be afraid to mess it up. I know that these scales are gonna show snail trails real bad, and that's definitely a concern of mine. But you know, these are all little details that we can worry about for the long-term review, and I definitely will cover my experience carrying it. Let's go over some features that make this different than the original Bowie. First off, this is going to be M390 on the blade steel. The original was CTS XHP, which I've never had any experience with, but my understanding is this is quite a jump up. So that's cool that they brought it into the modern era of modern high-end blade steels. Another feature, which is kind of a two-in-one, is this lock bar insert. So this actually is a steel lock bar insert. I'm not sure what steel they're using. I'm sure it's a good hard steel, a good modern steel. But it also doubles as an over travel stop. So you can see, you can kind of see down in there. So that lock bar insert not only works as the lock face to go up against the blade, but it also has an extension down below that keeps you from overextending that lock bar. So if you can hear, so it actually has a positive stop, so it cannot over travel. So that's going to be really nice. I've never had that issue with any of my frame lock knives, but to, basically overextending the frame lock, because I have frame lock knives and have had frame lock knives that don't have that lock bar over travel stop. Again, it's never been an issue, but it's nice, just for peace of mind, knowing that you're not going to mess up the blade or locking geometry. Man, this is just ridiculous. You're not going to mess up the locking geometry by accidentally sending that lock bar over too far. So just cool little additions, cool little changes that I think are certainly welcome on an already pretty awesome knife design. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Please stay tuned. I definitely will be giving a full review on this, kind of a long-term review, and I'll let you know what my thoughts are. But so far, I'm really excited, and I definitely see this getting some pocket time. So anyway, guys, leave some comments. Were you able to snag one of these when they dropped? I know they're very hard to get, but I was very lucky. So I'm curious if any of you guys had the same luck. And let me know what you think of it. What are your initial thoughts on this? And if you want to see more of my knife and EDC gear content, please consider subscribing. I greatly appreciate it.